Alright, no fancy intro this time, no example segue, none of that flashy stuff. I'm gonna get right into things. I hate Zenless's UI and I need to talk about this. Let me be clear when I say that I don't think that the art style or direction of ZZZ's UI is terrible. I instead have a problem with how information is displayed and sometimes the massive lack of information that is not displayed in this game. And before you say anything, yes, I'm aware of the dev talk that was had recently, and no, I don't think that because they said they're going to improve their UI means that I'm not going to have to make this video. I still have a lot of things to say that I fear as though the devs aren't going to address in the update, and I feel I still need to get my point across. Like and consider subscribing after this, but without further ado, let's get into things. If you're new to gacha games, a lot of them tend to have characters up in the hundreds. Because of this, a glossary is most likely going to be needed for these games due to the potential thousands of effects needed to be remembered whilst playing, either in-game or on the respective wiki. Most gacha games will have characters that give themselves specific buffs or grant specific debuffs, and most of the time, this is displayed via an icon or visual effect, either on screen or on the character. Sometimes games will go as far as to punctuate the specific term using brackets and even different font colors, further highlighting the importance of this buff or debuff. For example, in Dislike, character-specific buffs and debuffs are separated into three categories: generic, silver ring, and golden ring. Generic effects consist of stuff like attack up and defense down, whereas silver and gold ring effects are exclusive to specific characters, with the difference of silver ones being dispellable while gold ones are not. Dislike does a good job explaining character abilities because they do two things that I like. They highlight key wording in a different color, and the buff displays on screen while the effect is active. But Rune, Zenless changes the colors of its fonts for its effects, and it also displays buffs on screen when they're active too. Wrong answer, forehead. First of all, it's not even made obvious where to look at when you're trying to view a character's passive. Very small nitpick, I know, but the least that they could do is put the word passive on the side of this tape like this in order to make it look a bit more obvious. And going back to the fonts, the only colored fonts for effects in this game are for the elements and the numbers that change when you level up the passive. This is bad because when you have literal walls of text like this, it can be very confusing for the average player that just wants to know what the basics of these characters' abilities are. Especially so for the case of Lighter, when all this passive really is just a meter that fills and depletes respectively. All they really need to do to fix this issue is just highlight specific states or stacks that characters gain in a unique color like gold or something, so that way the player can understand that it's an important ability unique to said character. And to those of you about to type the just read comments, yes, you can ultimately just read every last paragraph there is in this game, but information like this doesn't have to be this basic and boring. It can be streamlined to be a lot more accessible and understandable, especially when Hoyoverse is known to dumb down explanations of things in other games. I personally just want this game to be simple to understand, yet continue to hold its difficulty to master personality. And if we're gonna keep having these characters that gain these whack-ass stacks of hullabaloo, the least the devs can do is make the hullabaloo look as important as it is by highlighting specific buffs in a unique color. Going on to the icons. Yes, icons appear on screen in this game when you apply buffs, but my issue is that you have no idea what these icons are supposed to look like outside of combat if you're using the character for the first time. They're not displayed on the skill screens, and the icons themselves in battle are incredibly tiny. Yes, they are displayed in the effects details tab, but A, this is only for specific abilities, B, you don't get to see drive disc elements here, and C, this is legit the only place where you can see information like this simplified, and I really dislike it. Granted, you're normally supposed to see a tab like this in any video game that has skills and stats, and I'm at least grateful that it's in the game somewhere, but at the same time, I have to go into training to figure out what these little icons are, rather than the game just simply telling me it in the skill tabs of a character. Another big issue that I have is that debuffs are just completely nowhere to be found when it comes to information in this game. At least with character buffs, there's these little symbols that showcase that they exist, but debuffs that these characters apply are so non-existent that you think that these characters literally don't do anything for most of their field time. Jane has a whole ass debuff where enemies are in a nod state when she hits them, but because there's no information telling you this outside of the core passive, there's no incentive to remember why this debuff exists. This wouldn't be an issue if the debuff wasn't tied to the fact that her damn assaults can crit shit if they're in this state. Coleta Apply is probably the best standard S rank debuff in the game, and it's not shown at all when it comes to the information displayed in combat. This type of information is integral when it comes to playing the game the absolute best that you can, yet there's no visual display of it at all when you're playing. This is especially a problem with the drive disc. If I want you guys to take away anything from this video, it's the fact that this game has a relic system that does not tell you when its effects are active. Every Hoyo style game is like this, and I absolutely hate it. What sucks is that it's a very simple and easy fix too. Literally just put the icon of the drive disc on the screen in battle when the effect is active. Even Dislike does this better than Hoyoverse, and I still find that extremely baffling. Now, the last thing that I want to get into is a bit of a personal issue, but I still think it's relevant when it comes to discussing this problem. And that is the fact that the game wants you to keep a mental track of everything that you do without key information in mind. Haramasa, my favorite sick twig. You guys know that I have him M1 and that I have more dash attacks than M0, right? So originally, in the content that I would showcase with my Haramasa, I would continuously get comments about how I'm wasting quivers, I'm wasting dash attacks, and so on and so forth. And I would just not know what you guys were on about. I was under the impression that I was just playing the character the way how the game intended to, but it turns out there was just some hidden tech that I did not know. So let's go over it again. When Haramasa EX skills, or when someone else triggers a shock, quivers come onto the field. Originally, I was under the impression that if you EX skilled again, this would reset the quivers. So naturally, my gameplay has me holding M1 to reapply the quivers onto the target and then dash attack. It is not stated anywhere in Harumasa's kit that if another set of quivers are to be set on field, the previous set will automatically detonate onto the enemy. Yes, it does say that the quivers will detonate when fired and that there can only be up to 6 at one time. There isn't an explanation for this specific situation, and it tripped me up for the longest time. It took me so long to understand this, way longer than I'm proud to admit, and I feel absolutely stupid for not knowing this because of course the quivers detonate. Where the hell would they go? But this continues to go to my point about A, the UI being bad, and B, ZZZ and Hoyo games wanting you to keep a mental note of literally every minor effect. Yes, there is a big, massive blue circle that shows up when you're able to do dash attacks again, but alongside the natural screen clutter of like the numbers everywhere, something as simple as like having a number appear next to the circle showing how many quivers were detonated onto the enemy would be an easy fix to prevent this stuff from happening again. Or maybe an icon that appears underneath Harumasa's health bar for a skill, or just something to make sure that players can understand that, oh hey, you have this amount of quivers on field already, and these quivers are going to detonate onto the, I don't know. It's a skill issue on my part, and that's completely fine. I'm just very upset that like it took me so long to understand this because Zenless's UI fucking sucks. Granted, this is all information that is explained within the combat tutorials of this character. All of this information is. And if anything, the combat tutorials do the thing that I want them to do in the skills tabs of these characters. The problem that I have with Harumasa is that this extremely specific interaction was not specified, thus I didn't understand how the kit fully worked despite reading through it countless times and playing the character 1,000-fold more. I've already addressed that it's like a massive skill issue, point and laugh at me in the comments, but I still think that there can be a lot more work done in the UI department to make sure that the agents' kits are simple to understand and information is more widely accessible and easier to acknowledge so that situations like this don't happen again. There needs to be more icons for buffs. There needs to be icons for when characters gain stats. There needs to be debuffs. There needs to be icons when enemies gain debuffs. Characters need to have specific UI elements for their characters if they gain specific stats. The whole spiel. There just needs to be more of it, and I really hope that the devs at least probably either see this video or respond to the feedback that I put in the survey, something, because it's just bothering me how this game has so much stuff that they want you to keep track of, but not enough of the information is displayed in combat or even on the character screen in order for you to remember things. And that's the video. A little bit more whiny and complainy this time around. I'm so sorry, but when it comes to games like these, especially games with a lot of skills and whatnot, I want to make sure that I am absolutely, positively 100% sure that I know how to play and use these characters. and I just love being able to know what these characters do, or at least have a place where I can look at and comprehend it pretty easily. But yeah, either way, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Yell at me, complain with me, agree with me, I really don't care. Links to everything in the bio. Support me on Coffee if you want. Consider becoming a YouTube member today. And a very huge shout out to the YouTube members on screen here. Thank you guys so much for supporting me, and I'll make sure to keep pushing out content like this in the future. I got a couple more videos to script right out, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.